Everybody, this is Nye from DoSpace, and this is the history of mobile phones. You will find this presentation on our YouTube channel and on DoSpace.org in the PDF form. So let's get started. In the beginning, modern society has always seemed to have a bit of an obsession with technology, but no single device has had an impact on the world than the mobile phone. Today, the average person touches their phone an unreal 2,617 times per day. More people in the world have access to a mobile phone than a toilet. In an average year, we've spent just under 800 hours on our mobile phones. And with these figures rising all the time, it's no surprise that the last 10 years has been labeled the decade of the smartphone. The first ever public phone call from a mobile phone was actually made a whole 10 years before any mobile phone was commercially available. Martin Cooper, a senior engineer at Motorola, made history when he called a rival telecommunication company, informing them that he was speaking from a mobile phone back in the 80s. The call was actually made with a prototype of their Dynatac model, the first handheld mobile phone went on the market, which was a whole 10 years later, and as you can see, it is as big as a brick. Widely considered the first true mobile phone available to consumers, the Marlboro Senator, produced by Nokia, was probably more effort to use than it was worth. Weighing an incredible 10 kilograms, there was no chance that you would be able to carry one of these around all day. Just 1 year after the Senator model was launched, Motorola launched the first ever handheld mobile phone with the Dynatac 8000X. The phone in question weighed over a kilogram and took more than 10 hours to charge. A lot of effort for something that can be used only 30 minutes of battery when fully charged. The next 10 years were relatively slow in terms of technological advances, with several similar models to the previous phone popping up. Most notably Nokia, with the release of its Cinnamon model under the Mobile brand. However, this all changed in 1992 when Nokia launched its 1011 model, the first mobile phone that could be used anywhere in the world. This was thanks to its ability to access the Global System for Mobile Communication, or GSM network, often referred to as the second generation 2K of wireless cellular technology. In 1992, it also marked the first year that the first ever text was sent. Neil Papworth, a text engineer for Sema Group, sent the first text message to a mobile phone on December 3rd, 1992, simply stating Merry Christmas. First launching in 1994, IBM's Simon Personal Communicator is widely known as the world's first smartphone. Way ahead of its time, the IBM Simon featured touchscreen display and countless pre-installed apps such as an address book, calculator, calendar, digital notepad, world clock, and more. While it was only on the market for 6 months, IBM still managed to sell 550,000 units of the headset. Remember the Nokia 9000 communicator? Yeah, I don't either. But this was considered the first phone of its kind, marking the start of the Nokia's legendary communicator line. It also serves as an inspiration for RIM, which was talked about in the history of BlackBerry. The mobile phone company that it made its name amongst business professionals throughout the mid-2000s with the BlackBerry company. It featured a full physical keyboard as well as one of the first phones with the ability to send and receive emails and fax via its GSM modem. Now in 1996, this was also the year in which the very first clamshell phone was introduced, often referred to as the flip phone. The Motorola StarTAC line was Also, first one of the first phones to be branded as a luxury device. It featured in advertising campaigns alongside other luxury devices such as the American Express Gold Card, as well as appeared in numerous films such as Nicolas Cage's 8mm. It weighed just 88 grams and was small enough to fit in your pocket, although it was marketed as a wearable phone due to its clip-on ability to items of clothing with the addition of a custom back. Also in that year, another notable phone was released called the Nokia 8110, nicknamed the Banana due to its curved profile. It attracted a lot of attention from consumers due to the fact that it was so easy to use. One of the very first slider phones, users would simply slide down the keyback cover to answer a call and slide it up to end a call. This was also featured in the Matrix film, although some additional features were added to make it more futuristic. In 1996 marked the first pay-as-you-go contract, which welcomed several groundbreaking new phones, and also had the launch of the Vodafone Prepaid. At the time, UK phone ownership stood at just 16 households. 10 years later, this would grow to 80%. Experts believe that this was mainly due to the two pay-as-you-go contracts on the accessibility of mobile phones of the average consumer. Now, these statuses may be in America as well, a little bit more, a little bit less. In 1997, Siemens rocked the world when it announced its S10 model, making it the first mobile phone with a full color screen. It displayed up to 6 lines of information with 4 different lines of color: red, white, red, blue, and green. Also coming with several basic apps such as an alarm, a phone book, and even a voice recorder. In 1999, which we had talked about in the previous video, after the launch of the communicator, the BlackBerry was introduced with the intro of the 850. While it was a very basic version of the BlackBerry, it still had a very similar design, and it featured the physical keyboard as well as the ability to send text and receive emails and browse the internet. Also in 1999, Nokia had re-entered the slider phone market with its 71810 model. Similar to the 8110 model, this phone featured a sliding cover over its keypad, which allowed users to easily accept and end calls. It was also one of the very first phones to offer mobile access via its revolutionary WAP browser, although this is only allowed access to websites that have been optimized only for WAP. So it didn't really have browsers back then that we know of now. And now, at the turn of the millennium, mobile technology developments really started to pick up as Japanese tech company Sharp released the Sharp J-SH04 under the J-Phone brand in November 2000. Whilst the model was only available in Japan, it shaped the face of mobile phones forever. This was the very first mobile phone to feature an integrated digital camera, even if only for 0.11 megapixels. Also that year, and arguably the most iconic Nokia phone of all time, selling over 125 million models, it was the release of Nokia 3310. It featured screensavers, customizable ringtones, and even the option to add a welcome message. It was famous for its long battery life and sturdy design, falling victim to countless durability tests over the years. This was also the phone that popularized the Snake 2 mobile game, although the game actually first appeared in Nokia's 5110 model all the way back in 1997. This model was so popular that Nokia even released a revamped smartphone version in 2017, following the company's acquisition by Microsoft. In 2003, technology advancements really started to pick up with the release of Nokia's monumental 1100 model. On the surface, this looks like a fairly basic mobile phone, offering little more than calls, text, and other standard features such as alarm and Snake 2. It also arrived at a time when smartphones with advanced features such as cameras, complex applications, and internet access were becoming more popular. So you'd probably be surprised to find out that this was one of the best-selling phones of all time, selling over 250 million units worldwide. And as we discussed in the previous video, the BlackBerry 610, known as the Quark, was named by Time magazine as one of the most influential gadgets of the time. While there were many successful BlackBerry models before this, the 6210 was the first BlackBerry model to actually offer integrated phone functionality or the ability to make calls, and thus really changing the way people saw the phone company, becoming the go-to choice for most business professionals around the world. And now the first 3G contract in the UK was in 2003. And this was also the year that the 3G network standard became adopted worldwide. The network was built to encourage faster speeds on mobile technology to meet standards. A network required to offer data peak rates of at least 0.2 megabytes per second in order to be classified as 3G. The mobile network provider 3 offered its first 3G network in the UK with the Motorola A830 NEC E606 and the NEC E808. Released at the end of 2004, the Razr V3 is Motorola's most popular headset to date, selling 50 million units between 2004 and 2006. It also claimed the title of the best-selling clamshell phone of all time. Famously for its remarkably slim design, the phone also featured 3G connectivity, a VGA camera, video recording, Bluetooth, WAP, internet browsing, and a variety of downloadable MP3 ringtones. 2005 marked the year that Sony partnered with Ericsson to release the first ever mobile phone under the famous Walkman brand, made famous through its portable cassette players through the 80s and 90s. The W800 was one of the very first phones on the market to prioritize music, possibly as a result of the iPod's recent success. Its features included a 2-megapixel camera with video recording, Bluetooth, infrared connectivity, downloadable games, MP3 ringtones, and a WAP browser, and of course a 3G network connection, which was commonplace at the time. It also featured 34 megabytes of internal memory with the option to add up to 2 gigabytes via a memory card. This phone was, in every sense, one of the first models to prioritize its creative features over the basic features of a mobile phone, such as calling and texting. Nokia launched its N95 model back in March 2007, sparking the start of the smartphone craze, boasting 160 megabytes of internal memory with the option to add up to 8 gigabytes on a micro SD card, as well as a set of dedicated media controls for watching films and listening to music. It was clear how much thought the manufacturers had put into it. One of the standout features of this phone was its 5-megapixel camera, featuring autofocus, flash, and even the ability to change ISO, white balance, and contrast. But this was just the very start. It also featured a complete office suite, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, voice commands, FM radio, a browser that supports Flash, and even a second front-facing camera for video calls. And also that year, as you all know, one of the main factors of Nokia's demise was the launch of the Apple iPhone, which debuted in June 2007, pricing in at $499 for a 2-year contract, as Apple managed to sell over 6 million units. While this wasn't the first touchscreen phone on the market, it came at a time when the mobile phone industry was predominantly made up of phones with physical keyboards, small screens, and chunky designs. Apple and the iPhone truly revolutionized the smartphone industry with the launch of the first generation iPhone. A year later, HTC launched its Dream G model, also known as the T-Mobile Dream G in some areas, in September 2008. While the phone itself was nothing extraordinary for the time, it featured a keyboard, a touchscreen, and a few buttons for key features such as answering calls and lying in its operating system. And this was also the very first phone on the Android operating system. Also, however, in that same year, just 1 year after its launch, Apple rocked the smartphone industry again with the launch of the iPhone 3. There wasn't even an iPhone 2 or 2G at the time. This featured an upgraded battery life, support for 3G networks, and a new and improved operating system, making it significantly more. And this model also made it significantly more affordable than the first one, with prices for just $199 for a 2-year contract. And also, this phone was the first phone to prioritize apps, coinciding with the launch of Apple's App Store, which featured 552 apps at launch. And as you can see here, the launch of the first App Store, Android also launched its own app store called Android Market, now known as Google Play, although it didn't offer much support for paid apps until 2009. And ever since, this also marked 2008 also marked the start of the ongoing Apple versus Android debate. In this year, 2009, BlackBerry launched its Curve 5220 model, further reinforcing its transformation from a business-focused to a consumer-focused manufacturer. Following the phone's release, BlackBerry sales spiked, going from just under 20 million units sold in 2008 to 50 million units in 2010. This was largely due to the widespread popularity of BlackBerry's instant message app, BlackBerry Message (BMM), which had amassed 190 users by 2015. And in 2009, this was also the launch of WhatsApp, regarded as the widely popular instant messaging network, now having over 1.5 billion active users. This allows users to instantly send messages, documents, images, and other forms of media, as well as make voice and video calls. 5 years later, the company was acquired by Facebook for just under $20 billion. And also in this year was the first successful 4G connection in the UK when, in December, O2 announced it had successfully demonstrated a 4G network connection using long-term evolution, or LTE, technology installed in 6 areas of England, thus making this the first time that a 4G connection had been successfully tested in the area, although it wasn't until 2012 when the first first 4G mobile network was launched commercially. Arguably one of the most successful phone lines in history, Samsung launched the very first Galaxy S in June 2010 with with 16 gigabytes of storage, a 1 gigahertz ARM Hummingbird processor, and an AMOLED touchscreen, a 5 megapixel camera, and a 1.3 megapixel front camera. It was very strong. It was a very strong attempt at competing with Apple's popular iPhone series and making the Galaxy S line one of Apple's biggest and most consistent competitors over the last 10 years. And also in this year, the word app was chosen as the word of the year by the American Dialect Society, following Apple and Android's ongoing push for apps. In 2011, Samsung launched its first phablet, the phone/tablet, the Samsung Galaxy Note 7000 in October, with a screen size of 5.3 inches, something that was pretty unheard of at the time. iPhone users ridiculed it as too big, asking questions like, does it even fit in your pocket? Ironically, which is quite ironic when you see that Apple is currently selling iPhones with a screen size of 6.5 inches. However, in 2012, mobile technology had really started to accelerate. Just 5 years after apps were introduced, and it was fairly uncommon to find a phone with Wi-Fi capabilities. Within the next 5 years, most of the world will be able to unlock their phones using their fingertips, and there would be an app for pretty much anything and everything you could want. This acceleration in technology was largely down to the mainstream success of the iPhone 5. With 5 million units sold in the first weekend of its release, this phone went on to become one of the most popular models of its time, and also marking the start of Apple's successful attempt at standardizing the luxury phone market. Also in that same year, often labeled as the first great Android phone, the Samsung Galaxy S3 was also launched. With more than 20 million units sold in the first 100 days, this was the first Android phone to consistently outperform the iPhone in polls. While in this year, it also marked the first 4G contract in the UK, with many media markets reporting EE's 4G network as the first available to consumers, launching in 11 cities in October. This wasn't actually the case. The Internet Service Provider UK Broadband was actually the first UK company to offer commercially available 4G network, which launched in February 2012. However, its network was limited to limited to certain areas in England or the UK. In September 2013, Apple once again changed the face of the luxury phone market with its attempt at a cheaper version of the iPhone 5 known as the iPhone C. While the iPhone 5 launched with the prices of $199 to $399 with a 2-year contract, the 5C was launched at a fairly affordable $99. Also in that year marked the launch of the iPhone S. This was also the first time that two iPhones were announced at the same event and setting the tone for years to come. Apple's Phil Schiller described the 5S as the most forward-thinking smartphone in the world, delivering desktop-class architecture in the palm of your hand. As well as improved software, the model featured something that iPhone users would have only seen in sci-fi movies: the ability to lock your phone with your fingertips. Also in that year, the Nokia Lumia 2012 is still known as one of the most powerful camera phones on the market. Coming in at a whopping 42 megapixels, this incredible phone has been described as able to replace a digital camera and as a compact camera with some phone features tackled onto it. It runs on the Windows Phone 8 operating system and has received several software and and firmware updates over the years, including the Lumina Black update, which allows it to capture raw images. A year later, Apple launched its first phablet phone, the iPhone S6 Plus, at the same time as the iPhone 6 in September. The phone brought a new, sleeker design to the iPhone, sporting a thinner body but a huge 5.5-inch screen. This new design didn't go over well with everybody, though, with some angry consumers reporting that the 6 Plus had bent while carrying it in their pockets. Despite these two models being the most expensive smartphones on the market at the time, Apple still managed to break sales records, selling a staggering 10 million units the first weekend that the handsets were on sale. A year later, easily one of the best looking smartphones of its time, the Galaxy S6 Edge, boasted a truly unique curved edge-to-edge screen. It also boasted an incredible battery life, offering 4 hours of usage out of just a 10-minute charge, and offering wireless charging, a 16 megapixel camera, and a quad HD Super AMOLED display. In that same year, one of the first two phones on Android 6.0, Google's Nexus 6P, was also one of the most popular models of 2015, with a solid 12.3 megapixel camera boasting 4K recording and 240 frames per second slowdown video, a 5.7-inch AMOLED display, and an impressive aluminum cell. It certainly had good specs for the time. A year later, Google launched its flagship phones with the Pixel and the Pixel XL to a great reception. Whilst the model's design was nothing really special, its high-quality hardware and software led it to receive near 5-star reviews across the board. On top of this, the phone received a ton of good press surrounding the camera, scoring a rating of 89 on the Darks DxO mark, the company that rates the quality of smartphones and DSLR cameras, thus making it the highest score ever awarded to a mobile phone at the time. But sadly, despite all this, it did not sell well from a commercial standpoint, selling just only 2 million units by the end of the year. And also in this year, 4G was available to 99% of the UK population. A year later, Samsung released what was arguably to be its two best models to date in April, with the Galaxy S8 and Galaxy S8 Plus. The models featured a full infinity display, support for wireless charging, a 12 megapixel camera with an f/1.7 lens, and foolproof security features including a fingerprint scanner, iris scanner, and face scanner, all in one package, selling over 41 million units in 12 months. Also in this year, Apple yet again changed the game in its annual September conference with the launch of the iPhone X, the first iPhone with a full screen display. This was launched to celebrate the anniversary of the original iPhone. The model received a lot of bad press due to its staggering price tag, with prices starting from about $1,000 for the 64 gigabyte model. But despite this, the phone took the spot as Apple's top-selling phone each and every week for the first 6 months following its launch, helping Apple to generate a record $100 billion in revenue during its time. Its main features included the lack of any on-screen buttons, support for wireless charging, a 5.8-inch AMOLED display with True Tone, a dual 12 megapixel camera, and Face ID. A year later, Shenzhen-based manufacturer OnePlus launched its strongest position to date in October with the OnePlus 6T. The company has slowly gained popularity since, with the launch of the OnePlus One back in 2014. Since then, it released a new model every 6 months, making it its name as the affordable smartphone to buy. And last year was the first 5G contract in the UK. However, some experts, especially at this current time, are expressing concerns over the use of 5G, calling for the release to be halted to undertake the connection between 5G and risk of cancer in humans. Also, with everything going on, some conspiracy theories as well. So basically, we've come a long way from the days of the senator, but what exactly will the evolution of smartphones bring us? From Light's nine camera smartphone to the foldable Royale Flex Pi, never seen before concepts are always popping up every other month, and the smartphone innovation seems to be at an all time high with everything to play in this ever increasing industry. And that is the history of mobile phones. That is a lot to take in, I know. But thank you for sticking with me this long. Like I said, this presentation will be on YouTube and on DoSpace.org. This has been Naya from DoSpace, and have a good day.